Trust the process. I mean, the fact that I'm recording this episode the day after the election, that is just, I don't know, man. By the way, welcome to the Self-Love Chat. I'm Sonia Trexel, your host, and we're going to talk about what the fuck do you do when you don't know what's going on? Definitely for a lot of us, uncertainty is very hard. I personally used to not deal with uncertainty very well. I grew up in the post-Soviet Russia in the 90s, where there was lots of crime, food shortage. My parents were making very little money. My dad, who was dealing with alcohol problems. All of that made me, of course, into the person that I am today, and I'm very grateful for that. But also, it instilled a lot of things that I'm working through at the moment, and one of them is the fact that uncertainty just makes me feel very unsafe. Like, we were way below the middle class. And I don't like to say that we were poor, because I feel like we were so rich in everything else in terms of how our family was and the love that we had for each other. But, you know, like, obviously as a kid, when you see your parents struggle and you realize that there is a lot of disparity between you and your peers, like, you internalize it in lots of ways. And so with that, not having had a stable childhood and my dad's passing at the age of 13, I became a control freak. They say, trust the process. But when you grow up with a ton of instability as a kid, I mean, what are we talking about? Like, you can't feel safe unless you, to some extent, feel like you are controlling the situation. And when something that you want so bad, you are like, I've got it, I want it, I know how to get there. And you're doing all the what seem like the right things, but it's not working out. You can't help but A, not trust the world, because you think, well, I thought that we are on the same side. And then the second thing is that you can't help but think that the reason why it's not working out is because you're not doing it right. Like, something is wrong with you. And I don't know about you guys, but I feel like I wasted a lot of time feeling anxious and worried when, in fact, it turned out that the world was actually on my side. But here's the interjection. We carry this illusion into our adulthood that trust is conditional based on whether we know what is happening next. And ultimately, the reason why is because we want to avoid all the negative things that might happen. So if I know what happens next, then I can be okay, because if something bad is happening, then I can kind of like go around it. If I know that something bad is coming up, then I might be able to avoid it. But life, man, life doesn't go like this. We get ups and downs, and life flows. And sometimes you feel like you're in control, you've got it all figured out, and then the next something else happens. But with all of that being said, how can you feel okay? How can I trust the world if things can flop at any second? And here's what I realized. Every philosopher is going to say, you can't control what's outside of you, you can only control what's within you, right? So our mindset is ultimately the key. But how do you actually shift it? Well, I personally found that you can do this by doing the following two things. Reframing uncertainty as opportunity, and by rebuilding trust in yourself. That is it. A little story time here. So I moved to the US in 2014, and I was 23, ambitious, young. I had a degree behind my back. I thought I was like, I'm going to find a job pretty soon. It's not going to be that hard. And I vividly remember how I was sitting on the floor in my apartment crying because I realized that I've sent over 120 applications where 4 of them responded, and then 0 out of them invited me for a second interview. I was like, this is it. Nobody wants me. What am I going to do? And then with that, everything that I already believed about myself, it all came to the surface. You know, like all of these stories that you're not good enough, you're not smart enough, maybe you don't have a college degree from the US. Like, of course they're not going to hire you. You know, all of these things, they were just in my head while I was sitting there being like, this is the worst. Once I went through that rock bottom feeling, I sort of gave in. I mean, there's nothing else I could do. I was like, I've invested so much of my time and so much energy right now that I can't do this any longer. Like, I don't have anything else to give. I'm going to still keep applying for jobs, but I'm not like, I don't have any expectation of them working out anymore. I'm just done. Like, I'll find a job when I find it. And at the same time, I was like, well, is there something I can do just to entertain myself or make myself feel better? Because I am literally going insane. And one of the things that I wanted to try was coding, but I never thought that I'd be good at it because I had a C- in math. Not because I don't know math, I had a beef with the teacher, but still, out of that experience, all I took is just that it's not for me. But since nobody was hiring me, I had all this time, so I was like, well, fuck it. I'm just gonna try it and see. It wouldn't hurt. And oh my God, I was obsessed. I just literally discovered this whole world of the things that were I thought were not possible for me. I was coding in the morning, I was coding at night, building websites, learning all of these things. But fast forward to 1 year later, I found my first job as a junior software engineer. And if you would have told me this 1.5 years before that, when I just moved to the US, that I would be working in tech, I would have not believed you. It was just not in my cards at all. But because I was rejected so many times, I was giving all of this time and space to see beyond what I thought was possible for me. Here is the truth. Your growth lies in the things that you want to avoid. And it only can happen at the time of uncertainty. Because if everything is going according to the plan that you've set for yourself, you cannot have the capacity, the time, or ability to see outside the box that you've set for yourself. So when you're in this time, when you don't know what happens next, and it makes you feel very worried, just remember and remind yourself this mantra that I have to tattoo on my forehead at this point because I keep repeating it everywhere. But whatever I'm doing, it's taking me to the best thing ever. And it sounds cheesy, but man, because that will determine whether you'll get stuck beating your head against closed doors or if you're going to just open the new ones. And so now, once you have that in place, what is the next step? How do you rebuild trust in yourself? So there are 4 things that help me do that. Number 1, my morning routines. My morning routines are non-negotiable. We usually talk about it from the wellness perspective, but I find that it is even more powerful when it comes down to the mental health. You can't control everything that happens around you, but at least there is one part of your day that you are in charge of. The second thing is keeping promises to myself. That is something that I was not doing really well in the beginning. But then the more I realized how important that is, when the world doesn't feel reliable, if I can at least rely on myself, then I feel calmer, I feel more present, and I feel secure that I don't need to seek it outside. And that is the foundation of not only inner trust, but also self-worth. If you have and deal with a lot of people who feel unpredictable and unreliable in your relationships and situationships, look into that. Because usually the people that we attract into our life, they're the mirror of how we treat ourselves. So if you feel like you can't rely on other people, do a little reality check. Are you able to rely on yourself? That is a very important question. The third thing is listening to my inner needs and my wants and saying yes to them. Because if you hear what you need and you give yourself that creates that slope of trust that I'm not ignored, and that just reinforces reliability and feeling safe within yourself. And number 4, surround yourself with the half cup full people. Half full? Half cup, oh my God, with positive people. And this is something that I probably should have started with, because honestly, the other ones could be crossed over if you're around toxic people. But your mirror neurons, without you realizing, are still going to fall into the negative patterns. And I know sometimes it is hard, right? Sometimes we're in relationships that we just can't end because the person is not that positive, or our families that we didn't choose sometimes don't represent the same ideas. But try to compensate that with bringing more positive people into your life so you can exchange that energy with them, so that way the other side, the other people in your life aren't just sucking it out all the time. And I'm also not talking here just about physical, but also whatever content you're consuming, especially right now around the elections or whatever news that you're watching. You're always going to be subject to mirroring all of those ideas that you hear. So it is literally in your power to turn things off, unsubscribe, unfollow, and make sure to make this your priority, because everything else that you might do to help yourself feel better during these times might just not work at all. Because if you're stuck around negativity, what else can you do? So yeah, to wrap this up, I really love how Stoics think about the uncertainty and how they approach it. And I have this quote that I love, and it says, "Make the best use of what is in your power and take the rest as it happens." We sometimes think that our power lies in being able to control the outcome. But in reality, our true power lies in knowing, absolutely knowing, that we will be okay either way. And of course, if you love this episode, make sure to like, subscribe, all the other things. Love you. Bye.